In this week's episode of SPAL, we'll be reviewing the matches against SPAL and Roma. We'll be previewing the upcoming matches against Fiorentina and Genoa. We'll be giving a review and rating on the signings this season so far and how they fared. This week's Moggi, Frog and Moratti, and much, much more. Everything here on Studio Inter, only on SempreInter.com.
Per De Vrij, c'è la torre per Messina, l'ha presa! L'ha ripresa Messina! L'ha ripresa Messina! Samir Handanovic la recupera Brozovic, andiamo in contropiede, la porta è vuota, tira, attenzione, e gol!
Benvenuti, bentornati to another edition of Studio Inter. I'm your host Nima welcoming you to I'm doing all right, but I'm a little bit disappointed, and I feel that most Interisti are. But before we get into all the reasons behind that, there are plenty of them to talk about on this day. I want to introduce my panelists, the excellent panelists. We have the SempreInter.com preview writer, Mr. Mohamed Nassa.
Yep, Mystic Mo's back. What's up, guys?
For sure. You were right. You did say 7 points on those 3 games, and we did get 7 points, and we are in second place. And
I did predict a 2-2 with Lukaku scoring and Sanchez. You did. Sanchez assisted instead of scoring, but yeah.
You did. That's very true. It's Mystic Mo in the house.
The often incorrect seer is back.
Brilliant. And we are also joined by our good friend, Mr. Will Beckman, former London media personality, former Moggi Moratti of the week, Mr. Will Beckman.
Don't want to brag, but I do have my own correct 2-2 prediction story to share if they're not going to become boring.
No, they're not.
There's written proof that I did. But maybe we'll get into that later. So, I don't want to steal Mo's moment. But Fulvio, but I said 2-2, and so did Fulvio as well. So
that's true. That's true. And we're also joined by the newest studio host for Inter Miami CF, our very good friend, Mr. Alex Dono.
Hey, guys. And I also want to steal both Mo and Will's moments because I too predicted 2-2, and there's audio record of it. So
really,
I think if nothing else, I think we all know this team so well they become so predictable.
They really have. Yeah. I mean, it really was predictable. I mean, there was no way Inter were going to win against Roma. I think we all kind of knew that.
But I didn't think we'd lose. That's so. I wasn't. I don't need to think that I was super pessimistic. But
no. I think a draw was pretty much what we all expected.
Yeah.
Given how everything was, but let's start on that because I mean we're already on it, so let's get into it. I personally didn't think Inter played that well. I thought Roma were better. I think maybe that based on how the game looked, Roma might have even deserved and felt hard done by to not have won the game. But before we get into that, I just cannot get past the refereeing yesterday. I have not seen anything that horrible in a very, very long time. I mean, it's not just one thing that was against Inter. Over the majority of his calls were inexplicably anti-Inter, if you want to put it that way. But I mean, just starting with, his ratings today from Rome-based newspaper Corriere dello Sport was 3.5. 3.5. That's what you give to someone for turning up on time and knowing their own name. Like that's the lowest rating I've seen in a very long time, if not ever, for a referee. And I mean, if we're going to go through the situations, I mean, there are 2 handball situations. One which is inside the penalty area on Eriksen's cross, the elbow from Gianluca Mancini in Lautaro's face, which is reviewable by VAR but wasn't, and he should have been sent off. Then you have the Diawara wiping his studs on Gagliardini's face, which at least should be a yellow card because it's dangerous play. And then you have the VAR situation, which is, I don't understand this notion that a lot of people talk about, that the foul, that Kolarov didn't foul him enough, and the contact was there, but it wasn't enough. Doesn't matter. He kicks him in the foot where he's supposed to take the ball, where he's supposed to receive the ball. That's destructive play right there, right? I mean, and how can you have a VAR? I mean, this is the Rosario Abisso Invitational. You get the VAR to show you what actually happened, and then you still screw it up. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, seriously, what's going on here, man? Like, Mo, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, look, the other stuff I think is, I mean, the handball on Eriksen's cross was, if we're going to be giving handballs to Juventus against Muriel, then that handball needs to have been called as a penalty. But honestly, the Lautaro Kolarov call baffles me completely. I don't get it. I don't get it because, like Conte said yesterday, there's no controversy. The foul is there, clear as day. You know, it is a foul. It was right in the same run-up play that the goal got scored, that we conceded the goal in. So and VAR reviewed it, and you know, you could see the screen that Di Bello was looking at, and the screen clearly froze at the frame where contact was made. Because initially, I thought Lautaro had gone down because of a shove in the back, and when VAR replayed it, I didn't see a shove in the back, so I thought maybe Lautaro did dive. But then you look earlier, and there's he clearly clips his back left heel, and Lautaro is unbalanced, and you know, he falls over instead of just tripping over because he's trying to get the attention of the referee. But it's a clear foul from behind. There's no two ways about it. Was there enough contact? Did Lautaro fall too hard? There was contact. It prevented Lautaro from receiving the ball. The contact was illegal. It was from behind. That's it. It's a foul. I don't see why we're discussing this. You know what I mean? Like, why is there even a conversation about this? It's not like Eriksen's cross and handball. Did he make his body unnaturally larger? It was the elbow taken out or not? I mean, these ones you can go on, and the rule of law, and whether the law is unfair, and whether they're reviewing the law. But the Kolarov Lautaro incident, zero confusion, zero ambiguity. You know, so it's not the reason why. I mean, you know, we're not looking for like a scapegoat for the match or whatever. No. And unsurprisingly, my opinion of the match is definitely far rosier than yours. The way I see the match.
Wow.
You know.
Wow.
Yeah. No. But having said that, I also think that, you know, this isn't the reason why we drop points there. Maybe if we hadn't conceded the goal right then, things would have been very different in the second half. You know, it's always extremely difficult to go down with absolutely no chance to recover before the halftime whistle, or before the full time whistle. In this case, it was the halftime. But I mean, it's always difficult to gather your thoughts. It's a great time to equalize for the equalizing team. So I don't know. But no, very, 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 very bizarre refereeing.
For sure. The thing that got me the most is, I mean, the reason why I talk about Rosario Abisso, maybe a lot of listeners don't remember, but that was the referee when Inter played Fiorentina away, and the video showed that the ball hit D'Ambrosio's body and not his arm, and still Rosario Abisso, after looking at the video, gave a penalty. I mean, so this is what doesn't get me. How can you... You know, this is what gets me. I'm not saying that there's a conspiracy, but I don't understand how you can look at video and get it wrong. That it is beyond me. I don't get that, because that's not incompetence. That's a mental disorder. Then it's either
I'm not saying there's a conspiracy, but there kind of is.
I mean, no, but seriously, that's how I feel as well. No, but seriously, that's how I feel it as well a little bit, because. I mean, I don't want to think that there's a conspiracy, but when you look at the video, like with Abisso, that situation, and yesterday, and you still get it wrong, well, either there's a mental deficiency issue, or there's malfede, as the Italians say. There's something not right here, and because that can't be incompetence, because it's like you're not believing your lying eyes, kind of thing. Like, what? Just look at the video. That's all you have to do. And I don't know. This really frustrated me a lot, because, again, as I started by saying, I think Roma were better, and I think maybe they even deserve to win and should feel, and maybe they have every right to feel hard done by not winning. But to me, these calls are like, They're there. I don't get it. Alex, help me get it. Help me get it, Alex.
Well, I am so conditioned, and the Abisso from last year is a big part of it, but I am so conditioned now to the idea that I was fully expecting the goal not to be overturned, even when they went to VAR. And that's not my problem. That's their problem. Like, they have this technology, but I just had this feeling that Di Bello was not going to go through the trouble to say that, well, should I overturn this because the goal happened several seconds later, and there was contact, but it wasn't the most egregious foul in the world. Like, it's something about these referees. I don't know if it's arrogance, stupidity, or just they're afraid to make a big decision like that because maybe he's worried about the backlash from removing a goal. I don't know. I can't speak for him. I don't know. I'm not going to be a full conspiracy theorist and assume some sort of corruption. I think the issue is much closer to incompetence than that. But even though it's clear as day when you watch the replay, it's clear as day that it was a foul and that Roma's goal should have never happened. And yet not for a second when he's reviewing that tape did I expect him to overturn the goal. And, I made the little joke on Twitter that, about Lautaro, thinking he's already in Barcelona if he expects to get that call. That was more just any excuse to make the Lautaro Barcelona joke. Like, upon watching the replay, I fully realized that the call was missed, and I had no faith that Di Bello was going to make it right upon review.
That's amazing, and I want to correct. The Corriere dello Sport gave him 4.5, which is also
not too high.
Exactly, it's still too high. Not 3.5. He gave him 4.5, and that's a Rome-based newspaper. And it's like, to me, I don't understand how they can let these. This guy should never officiate again. I mean, that's how I look at it. If you can't get this basic stuff right, then clearly you shouldn't have the job you have, because, as Alex said, I mean, I don't want to think that there's corruption involved, and I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but this kind of, when you have these kind of situations they're not wrong, they're so inexplicably wrong that just being wrong would be levels up from where we are. And that just doesn't, it's mind-boggling. I don't get it. I really don't get it. And it frustrates me. It really, really does. And I'm sure it frustrates you as well, Will.
Well, his whole performance was rather difficult to decipher. I mean, I heard on the Friday or the Saturday, whenever these designations came out, that even sort of ex-referees who comment in the media were surprised by the decision to appoint Di Bello for this game, because he's not an experienced ref. He's one of the younger ones that Rizzoli is maybe sort of trying to promote for the following season. But this was still a very important match. To use this as sort of a training ground for future seasons seemed a little bit strange. I don't know if he made this decision when it looked like Inter were actually out of the Scudetto race. But his last match was at the Olimpico was the Lazio Sassuolo game, which also had a lot of arguments with a goal that was disallowed and caused a lot of controversy. So it was a strange point in the first place. And then throughout the match, even if you go above the individual decisions, he was very inconsistent with the way he was doing things. At the start, he let everything go. Then at the start of the second half, he was whistling everything, and then he let everything go again. And then at the end, he was whistling again. He didn't seem to know what he wanted to do to control the sort of the temperature of the game, which is probably one of the most important jobs the ref has, apart from getting the big decisions right, which goes without saying. So it just an all-round strange performance and not a happy decision to put him on that match. I can't really add anything to what you've said in terms of the individual instance, because they speak for themselves.
I mean, my favorite my favorite part is I think it was Sky Sport, or if it was one of the Inter sites, FC Internews or FC in 1908, who reported that Conte shouted at Di Bello after he confirmed the equalizer. Did they call you to go for a little stroll, or did they ti hanno chiamato per farti una passeggiata, is what they asked. He shouted at Di Bello. Ironically, it's like, did they ask you just to take a little walk? And he said it after the game as well, so I definitely believe this, because he said it's like, when the VAR calls you, it's not to take you out for a little walk, it's to have you look at something. I mean, it's really mind-boggling, and I do think to be honest, I think it's unfair on Roma as well, because it's as if they they end up in a situation where they have to defend a point they won, and by which, based on the merits of the game, they probably deserved and should have probably had two more. So I think, the situation is just, I don't know. But speaking of the game itself, what do you guys think? I mean, do you agree with me? Mo already said he has a much rosier view of the game than I did. Will, you sounded a little bit like you were also a little bit negative. Alex, what do you think? I mean, what's your take on the game?
It's a very pedestrian performance, a little bit uninspired, I thought. And listen, I know that the squad doesn't have full complement of health, especially in the midfield. I thought it was a little bit curious to have Brozovic playing behind the strikers. I think Luciano Spalletti learned that lesson his first season, that's not the best spot for him. And we saw some of the usual themes come up, guys, that we can get caught a little bit flat-footed on defense in some of these counterattacks. I mean, it's reached the point that anytime an opponent is on the counter, and that really goes double for a team like Roma that has more talent than most of the teams that we face since the restart, that your heart rate really starts to go up because you kind of expect goals to be scored at one point. And specifically on the second Roma goal, there was an error in the back that led up to it. As far as the way Inter played, looked good on set pieces. You get another assist for Dynamite Alexis Sanchez, who's been really, really good since the restart. He's been Inter's best player since the restart. And, Nima, you talked about the result probably being, a little bit against the run of play that Roma probably deserved more. Thank goodness for Spinazzola committing that really stupid penalty and getting us right back in the match that led up to the Lukaku penalty kick. So, I guess the good thing, the positive we can take after the fact is that even though we hoped for a little bit more than what we got, maybe we didn't expect it, because it sounds like all of us predicted a draw, specifically a 2-2 draw. But, as a result of that point, we know now that Inter cannot finish worse than fourth place this season. Although I'll throw something back at you, Nima, because my understanding would be that with the European football situation, we have to hope and pray that Napoli doesn't win Champions League and Roma doesn't win Europa League, because if both of those things happen, the fourth place Serie A team will not qualify for Champions League. So we cannot say we have clinched Champions League. We can only say we have clinched no worse than fourth place. So not that I'm expecting, I probably have a better chance of getting struck by lightning this afternoon than, both Napoli and Roma winning Champions League and Europa League respectively. But still, in light of that little factoid, I am hoping that Inter can, hold on and finish third place or second place, because I do not even have to run into a situation, because my nightmare scenario would be Champions League final, Juventus and Napoli, and having to root for Juventus to win that Champions League trophy. I do not want to be in that spot.
Oh my God. No, Jesus.
I would still cheer against Juve in that situation, by the way. I would rather Inter miss Champions League than Juventus win a Champions League.
For sure.
Alex, they're on the same side of the draw, so it'll be a semi-final.
I hadn't looked at
It'll be Napoli Atalanta. That's the
my
Gasperini.
My dream is Atalanta Juve in the final, Atalanta win. That's the only way that win could be any more delicious. This is if Atalanta beat Juve in the Champions League final. No, but I wanted to talk to you guys, because we kind of about something, because our good friend Carlo Garganese, he's been on this pod a couple of times, and he always says that last time he was on, he said that he was thinking that there's something about playing 3 games a week that Conte can't handle. And now he sent me a message, which I have to read to you, because I think it's really interesting. I want to hear what you guys think. I don't think it's acceptable that Inter's midfield keep getting dominated on like this. That's entirely on Conte. And I'm starting to, for the first time, entertain the possibility that Conte is maybe on the same path as Mourinho, meaning he plays an outdated football that's not effective or progressive enough. If this continues into next season, I'll say it, but right now I'm giving him enough of a pass. However, I am concerned that how often the opposition controls the tempo in midfield against Inter. And also the 3-5-2 is looking very, very outdated. But as I said, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. And it's still the first season, and some players who aren't good enough, etc. But I'm starting to have serious doubts I had about Mourinho around 2006. That's a really interesting point. What's your take on that, Mo?
Yeah, no, I don't know what he's smoking. Really, love Carlo. His commentary is always very good. I really don't. I really don't know what's up with that. The entire first half of the season, Inter's hallmark was midfield domination. I think for reasons that have been very well documented on this podcast, our post suspension form, especially in the midfield, is due to two things: the injuries, and then of course the fact that this season is being played in July and or pushing August, when temperatures are high, and this very, very, very physical and intense type of football that is required by Conte is difficult to implement consistently, and it's a three-day between match situation, of course, less recovery time, but to call it outdated or
No, but
like Mourinho. I mean, it's also sorry. It's also a stretch because he's saying that Mourinho is playing outdated football, which I already disagree with. He already lost that.
Yeah, exactly. You lost him in that too.
I've already a double stretch, so
yeah,
I can't disagree with that.
But the thing is, one. I mean, we talk about this stuff, me and him, all the time, and I think what the point he's making is that he's no longer that people might have started to read the weaknesses in his system. I think that's what he's referring to. And as he said, he's not ready to fully go there, but he's really starting to entertain the idea. And I gotta say, I would be lying if I didn't admit to have had that thought having crossed my mind too. Not that it's there, but that maybe Conte is burning up quicker than Mourinho, because Mourinho dominated in a way that not many have. And it's difficult for a manager to, because I mean, let's be honest, Mourinho has not dominated anything since leaving Real Madrid, pretty much. I mean, the United was despite the 3 titles, it was a horrible from start to finish. There are reasons for that, for sure, but I mean, his stock is not where he once used to be. Let's be honest. Even though I don't agree that his football is outdated and all that stuff, I think that's a little bit of a stretch as well, because the man approaches the game like a scientist. He questions himself all the time, and I think Conte does to a certain extent as well, because look, we got to see Antonio Conte play with a back 4. I mean, did we pick up on that? Like, has anyone heard anything about flying pigs, aviating pigs? Has anyone heard anything about the end of the world? I mean, he returned to a back 4, and Victor Moses was a winger. Like, that actually happened. And I think so. I'm not too. So I mean, it just goes to it goes to show that maybe he's the criticism against him as him being too rigid tactically is just not true, because he's changed formations a lot of the times, and yesterday he really changed formations towards the end. But I think what he's saying is that, as I said, I think what he's referring to, and he said he's not ready to say it full yet, but he's entertaining the idea, and he started thinking. And I got to be honest, I thought that the thought has crossed my mind too. I would be lying if I didn't admit to that. Where are you on this, Alex?
Little too soon, but like you said, to be fair, he's entertaining it. He's not yet saying it, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that. I just the circumstances of the way things have played out since the restart, I think Mo hit the nail on the head. I can't make any true judgment until next year. I really can't, because we play this game with managers, especially Inter managers, and especially Conte, because Conte is such an emotional guy that, people turn on him anytime he says something negative to the press, and he says something negative to the press anytime Inter drops points. So I think it's very easy for people just to be on the seesaw of emotions with Conte. I think, again, the biggest issues with the midfield since the restart have, number one, been injuries, inconsistencies in that regard. I mean, where is Stefano Sensi? I mean, where has he been since the end of September? I mean, the guy is just a mess. He's an absolute
TikTok.
mess. Yeah, sure, that's right. Yeah, his girlfriend is sitting on his back, and he's pulling all of his muscles. And Vecino is injured, and he's getting surgery now. And even Barella missed a little bit of time since the restart. So I don't know, when you're missing 3, sometimes 4 options in your midfield, and you're having to rely on the Gagliardinis and the Borja Valeros of the world to try and give you consistency. It's really no wonder to me that the midfield is getting overrun. Now, when it comes to the 3-5-2, I think sometimes the back three is on a little bit too much of an island. And, a guy like Milan Skriniar was obviously much better for a back four than he was for a back three. So I think that's a whole different conversation. But as far as the conversation about the midfield, I just think it has way too much to do with injuries, matches every 3 days, playing football in July. I really don't put the midfield problems on Conte because I've seen enough good to outweigh the bad.
Nice one. Okay, that's a fair point. We'll have to bring Carlo on to have the debate properly, I think. Will, what are you on this? Are you with Mo, or like where are you with that? Where are you on this thing?
I mean, I would also urge caution against too many sort of huge sweeping judgments like the one that we're discussing based on what is a very strange and anomalous few months. There was clearly a shambolic midfield performance last night, I would say. The second goal in particular, I feel like I've seen already about 15, 20 times this season. Just a sort of nice chasm of space for the opponents to waltz into with a exposed back three. But if we're looking at the macro theme, no, I wouldn't put it all on Conte being behind the 8 ball. We know that he has his way, and he trusts his own methods and not a lot else. So it's possible, he could struggle to evolve if football goes in that direction. But it's not. I don't think it's the biggest issue right now. I would say, like they said, there have been too many injuries in midfield this season, and I'm not. I think it's up to you to decide whether that's an excuse in Conte's favour or whether that's something to criticise him for, because Antonio Pintus was his choice, and clearly something has gone wrong in the last sort of 12 months. There have been far too many injuries even before lockdown. I remember the first game that we had against Roma in December, we were without a midfield there as well. We had absolutely no choice but to pick the 3 midfielders that we had fit. So this has been going on for 6 months. It's been exacerbated in the last few weeks. But you do wonder how the second half of the season would have gone had some of these injuries been avoided. I mean, you always have 1 or 2 injuries throughout a season, so that's fine. But to have this many is very strange. And I don't know. I felt like under Spalletti we didn't have that many injuries. So obviously something in the physical preparation has changed. So that's a question mark that Conte has to ask, because it's not a coincidence when all these things keep happening to him. And as you said, these players have been overworked. Gagliardini has basically not left the pitch for the last month, and that's not very nice for Inter fans who have to watch every 3 games.
That's not nice for anyone.
I saw the stat right before the match, and it obviously has reigned true through the entire restart. He is the only Inter player who has started. I mean, aside from Handanovic, of course, the only outfield player who has started every game for Inter since the restart is Gagliardini.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's what 9 games, 8 games.
Mo.
Funny, Alex should mention Handanovic.
Yeah, we got to talk about that. Because it is an issue now. It is no longer just him standing rooted when shots are. Now this is an issue. What his performance and form is an issue. And again against Roma, by again luck not to concede, he does these things that you do not expect a goalkeeper of his age and experience to do. I don't know what's going on, and it's weird to see.
I mean, look, the first goal I put on him as well. The first goal is it's not a clear error on Handanovic's part, but you'd expect a goalkeeper of Handanovic's stature to be able to do something about that ball before it even gets anywhere near the fry. There was nothing preventing him from reaching that ball. And then we can go on and on about the scuffed shot, the scuffed crosses.
What is he doing?
I don't know. I mean, it's never been his forte coming out to catch crosses, but yesterday was particularly.
He's a spiller.
Yeah.
Sorry, he's a what?
He's a spiller. He spills things.
Yes, he does, but it's never been like this. Like this is really an issue now. Like this is no longer, he's rooted to the spot and the shots go in. We have an issue. There is an issue here. He is completely out of form, and it's so weird because it's come out of the blue. I mean, it's not like he's been on decline. It's this level that we're seeing now. This has come out of the blue for me. I mean, I did not see him completely forgetting how to be a goalkeeper over 3 months, because it's just time and time again against SPAL. Lucky not to get a penalty against us. We're brilliantly explained by Luca Marelli, by the way. And then yesterday against Roma again, he does this inexplicable thing where Mancini's surprised that he gets the ball and doesn't score into the open net. This is an issue, and this needs to be addressed. And the fact that Inter don't seem to address it and are just putting it down to bad form and are therefore going to hang on to Radu. I don't know. I hope it's like, I mean, all players can have bad forms. I hope it's that. But I mean, I want to start seeing the Handanovic you saw last season. That I mean, at least before this is over in Europe or something that calms me down, because this is an issue. This is a serious issue now. Will, you said something?
No, I was listening intently, as always. Mo.
Look,
I was thinking about things to say, but I wasn't going to butt in.
Mo,
I will say that like you correctly said, even the biggest Handanovic detractors, myself included, this is surprising. This is surprisingly poor form over the last 3 or 4 games. Has been quite far worse than I'd ever seen him play. So I don't know if it's a psychological thing, if the errors, the fact that they keep piling up has put him in a difficult headspace or something. I don't know, but it's definitely far worse than I've ever imagined him or imagined his errors. That's spoken on and on about over the years many times.
Absolutely. Alex, did you have something you wanted to say with that?
It's truly alarming. And, when you talk about goalkeeper errors, I'm reminded of De Gea's recent exploits at Manchester United. And you wonder if a similar track is being, headed down by Handanovic at this point. I don't have a whole lot to add to what you gentlemen said, except, hopefully the message is being sent loud and clear to Marotta and to Suning that you need to seriously evaluate the goalkeeper position. I know there's talk about Radu being, the number 2 next year, and of course you have to do better than Padelli, who's just horrific, and Tommaso Berni.
I mean, oh my God, Padelli in the derby, Jesus, never again.
And then you also have Tommaso Berni, who, listen, as a fellow bald man, I appreciate him representing the cause, but I don't know what the guy's even on the team for. I mean, maybe
more red cards than appearances.
That's right. That's very true.
But the funny thing with him is that on his social media, that's the funny thing. On his social media, him and his wife are so into that whole hipster mindfulness thing, and they post photos of themselves, meditating and mindfulness and love and unity. And the guy gets sent off twice in 3 weeks for insulting people off the bench.
Oh, it's so great.
Maybe this is, he's so used to traveling to soothe his mind, but he can't go on holiday at the moment. He's getting really cooped up at the moment.
That's true.
That's it. It's got to be that.
Could I say something else on this game?
Go.
So, there are two things that Conte said after the match that were quite interesting. Obviously, the first one was his massive rant against the fixture schedule, which is now overshadowed everything in the media today, saying that it's unfair that Inter were not present enough when the fixtures were being decided, saying that was the reason that this was such a poor performance. And I think it has some kind of bearing, because it's 2 consecutive away matches within 3 days, having played another game 3 days before that. So there was that, but then there was also something he was talking about when he was asking about the sort of being used to winning. And there's that kind of phrase that keeps on being brought out with Juventus about how they have the mentality to keep going for more and more. And the end of that match last night, it looked as if the Inter players were more concerned about protecting the draw that would guarantee them 4th than potentially going for a goal that would get them, a temporary 3-point gap to Juventus. I think there was one point where someone was encouraging his teammates to slow down and sort of a minute from the end, because as if they'd got what they wanted. And I just wonder if this is, he's concept this sort of you have to have the ambition to win and to go and try and seek something else and never being happy with what you've got. And I wonder if that's something that this team has got in its DNA now. They're happy just to be comfortably in the Champions League. Maybe that's why the second half of the season has been so strange, and so many games have been played sort of for 50 minutes and not more. I don't know, but it's
you seem to have a thought on this.
Yeah, I really thought I read the last 15, 20 minutes of the match completely differently than what you're talking about. I saw Roma wasting time. Paulo Lopez got a caution for time wasting. I can't remember who was it, Diawara, who after picking a fight and getting subbed off, took the pitch, walked off the pitch in like half an hour. It seemed like they were the ones time wasting and doing these small team tactics to try and preserve their 1-goal lead. And it's, for me, like you had said, or maybe it was Alex who said earlier, it didn't feel like we were going to lose. So I knew that, and I thought that Inter showed so much hunger in the last few minutes. But what I also saw was balance. It wasn't frantic. It was measured, but we were by far the better side in 80 minutes on. So to the point where this for me is always like what is it? My bellwether for how I feel about the match is how many minutes come on extra time and how I feel about those minutes. Yesterday, when the fourth official put up the 4-minute sign, I'm like, God damn it! What do you mean only 4 minutes? We need 6. So I wasn't nervous. I wanted more time, and I think this is for me. I mean, I can only speak from my personal experience, but for me, this is always a very good gauge of how I feel about the match without thinking about it too hard. When it's 4 minutes and I'm like, oh good God, we have to endure another 4 minutes of this. Please, ref, just fucking whistle. Then you're thanking your lucky stars because you come out with whatever result. But yesterday, when the 4 minutes came on, I was livid. I'm like, we need at least 6. How is it possible? How can it only be 4 minutes? So I personally, I gotta disagree with you on this point. I thought that after the substitutions, after Lukaku came in, there was a lot of hunger and maturity in the way they handled the match. And I don't think the penalty. The penalty was a freak accident. It was just a true reflection of the switch to the back four, Moses being in the position where he's attacking up front on the right side. So it felt like the goal was coming, because if Moses had gone through, and he had already gone through the ball, he would have just assisted Lukaku and it would have gone in. So I read, like I said, my verdict on the match, and looking at the match stats now, when we were talking earlier, I think I saw the match in a much more positive light than you guys did.
If you could channel Mo's genuine positivity in people's lives, there would be so many less antidepressants prescribed.
I'm starting to get bored of myself. I'm like I need to start feigning negativity.
But that's the thing, though, because you're genuinely, like what you just explained, there's thought behind it. There's nothing fake about that at all.
And it's working on me, Nima, because
it's worked on me too. Yeah, exactly.
He needs to go, like you were my Tony Robbins. Like, I need you to go on speaking tours, right? Because if only Tony Robbins would talk about Inter, he never does. I need Mo.
We need Mo.
More like a style of buff, man.
But speaking of that giant rant Conte said about the Will brought up about the match fixture, the fixture list. To me, what I took out from that, I read something today. I think it was in Gazzetta. I'm not sure. Someone who basically said that, look, this is Conte. When Conte was at Juve, when he was at Chelsea, he did the same thing. He doesn't feel he's just a coach or the manager. He feels that he's part of the directors. Like, he wants everyone to meet his high standards and act the way he thinks you should do and be on your toes. And that's why he said what he did about saying that, look, when the fixture list was there, it's almost as if we weren't there. Not almost, as he said, we weren't there, even though Inter have 2 representatives on that board. But then again, he does have a point, because if you have 2 representatives there, and you get a fixture list where 5 out of 8 games you play teams who have rested one more day than you, and Juventus having 0, then you're not doing your job properly. So I think I got to agree with Conte here, actually. I mean, I think that's the point.
This is a period where we're playing 6 games in 16 days, which I honestly cannot remember ever happening before. There are 6 games in a row where there's only 2 days in between each game. So you've got the 13th, then the 16th, then the 19th, then the 22nd, then the 25th, and then the 28th. So it's a really nasty sort of calendar in this little period. It must be said, if we rewind sort of 2 months, Inter were probably the least enthusiastic out of all the teams in Serie A to restart the league for whatever reason. We know Steven Zhang was particularly offended initially when Italy was going to try and carry on with the league despite the pandemic that was overwhelming everyone. So they clearly weren't the club that was pushing for reforms. I know that Marotta, just before the league restarted, he voted against several proposals to get the league back on its feet, and presumably he would have done that having received an input from the men above him. So that might be why Inter weren't that bothered. There was definitely a sense when the league restarted that the club, at least at the club level, there wasn't much enthusiasm to get this season up and running again. But Conte doesn't care. He'll find anything to have a shout about. There was some other things as well that there was another thing that he said where he said he was obviously having a go at saying, whenever anyone in the media wants to take a swipe, they take it against Inter. We're in the Champions League with 4 games. Well, we're in the top 4, 4 games left. We're a lot of points ahead of Milan, Roma, Napoli, who had the same sort of objectives as us. What are you saying about them? And I have to say, I didn't like that because we did not have the same objectives of Milan and Roma and Napoli, right? Mo, you just talked about how Roma were time wasting. Fine, they're 5th. They're going to finish ahead of Napoli and Milan. That's what I expect. They were not in the discussion not to win the league, but to have a go at giving Juventus some problems. So that's just covering your own arse. I don't think anyone believes it. He does have a point about the fixtures, but he kind of went a bit too far on that.
Agree 100%. And as always, this being Italy, we have to refer to these issues have ramifications, and everyone has to have their say. And some people and there's a person named Ignazio La Russa, who is a very top level politician. He's the vice president of the upper legislative chamber of the Italian parliament, the Senate. He's the vice president of the Senate. He used to be Minister of Defense under Silvio Berlusconi's in one of his governments. And he's also a very famous, very outspoken and openly about how much he loves Inter. And he was asked to comment on Antonio Conte's statements yesterday. And I have to read this because this is amazing. Those comments are inaccurate. It's true that there is a problem in Lega Calcio. Inter's fixture list is appalling. But there is an unwritten golden rule. There's an unwritten golden rule, and that is that when Juventus are in trouble, help is immediately provided. And the refereeing yesterday in Roma versus Inter confirms this once again. Juve fans can't admit it because it's part of their contracts with their club. Luciano Moggi is the prototype of a Juventino. He's a cheater who's very competent. I mean, that was... I'm sorry, I like this stuff. I think it's funny. I love it. I absolutely love it. I love when Inter and Juve go at each other, and I love how these two fan bases absolutely detest each other on moral grounds, and I love when they throw that in each other's faces. I'm sorry. I eat this shit up. I do. I eat it up. I eat it up like I don't know what.
Just amazing to hear him contest now saying, if everyone's always having a go at Inter, this is just so unfair that everyone's got it out for Inter. I mean, if they'd let him go on a few more minutes there, he would have said, and Juventus stole all those championships.
Yeah.
I was waiting for that.
He is absolutely in this role now. I mean, for all his faults, he's properly become the Inter coach. If you told me a year ago that you'd be hearing stuff like that from him, I would.
I think this is good.
Strange.
And can I add something to that? Because Will just touched on it there. It's funny because I've had my fair share of criticism on Conte. I don't think he's above reproach. I know that some people just blindly despise him. Some people blindly love him. I'm somewhere in the middle. But upon reading those comments yesterday, that was really the first time where I thought to myself, he's starting to feel like one of us. Like he's starting to really feel like one of us after reading that, right? I mean, at least for today, he's not Tony the Juventino, like he's Antonio Conte of Inter. Like that's what he is right now to me.
No,
Yeah, and he may have thought of that, because I don't think he's as necessarily as calculated as maybe someone like Mourinho with his comments.
Yeah.
But, you know, he has got a lot of people on side after what was a pretty poor performance.
Yeah.
So maybe it was a deflection. I don't think so, because I think he just shouts a lot and says what he thinks.
Well,
But,
that's,
you know,
that's the thing. I don't think he's got, like I said, and I think it was last week's episode, I don't think he can control his temper. When Nicky Bandini was here, and I said, you know, and I said that, you know, I drew the whole thing about throwing a hissy fit over Juan Iturbe and €100 restaurant, restaurant and €10 in your pocket coming after Iturbe not being signed by Marotta. You know, that to me is just because he can't control his temper.
That reminds me, you know, throwing a hissy fit because your club didn't sign Juan Iturbe, that's not aged well. That was 6 years ago. That's
but that's true, and that's exactly what he did, and I think that's part of his issue. I think that's part of his problem. He doesn't have any self-control when he gets angry, and I think that's a little bit of his to his detriment. And I'm kind of like with Alex on that. I mean, the reason why I didn't want Conte was the Skriniar thing, mainly because I think Skriniar is Inter's next captain, and I think he's shown over the last 2 years that he is world class in a back four, and you know, being world class in a back four doesn't always mean that you're world class in a back three. And I think people who I mean, I don't get it. Why? I mean, there's a reason you know, some people are good at some things and some people are better at others, and it doesn't mean you're bad at the game itself. It just means that you don't suit certain systems. So for me, my main reason was that, and also the lack of wide players, wing backs. That the quality there wasn't good enough, and clearly those were true, but we'll see. But we'll see where we go from here. I mean, Ashraf Hakimi is a fantastic signing, and so that's being addressed. But I mean, I don't know. I do feel a little bit more like, building on what Alex said. I think after the little outbursts and the little criticism, I think Inter have started to learn and understand him, and he's starting to take on Inter. I think there was a period it needed to go to things to go bad, and for a little bit of friction to be there for everyone to find themselves. And my read on the way I read the tea leaves is that that's what's happened now. They found each other. They know where everyone stands and how they stand and in what way they stand, and I think that's good for Inter. I think that's good moving forward, because that can only unite Inter, and Inter need to be united if they're going to do anything in this league.
Amen.
Right, let's move on to I mean, the season isn't over yet, but it will be in about a week and a half, the Serie A season. And I thought we do this little thing where we kind of give an overall rating on Inter's signings made last summer. I think I think it's unfair to Ashley Young and Victor Moses to do anything on them, because the way that their season has been fractured. But the players signed in the summer, and an overall rating, and who we think has been the best player and who we think has been the worst. So I'll start with you, Mo. Give us your rating and then say who you think have been best and who's been the worst signing.
Yeah. Oh, how the tiny, mighty Sensi has fallen. I remember when we did this mid-season review of the transfer market. I think Sensi was the biggest surprise, if not best signing on everyone's list. I think, having looked back, I think all in all, it's been a pretty solid transfer season. I think the majority of the players have played. Of course, with Sensi being an exception, the players that have been brought in have played and had a positive, overall positive contribution to the side, especially compared to their equivalents last season. I would say my favorite, my highest rated incomer would be a toss-up between Barella and Lukaku. Of course, Lukaku is, fantastic, phenomenal, excellent. But I just also think Barella has been profoundly impactful on the midfield, in a sense that, of course, Icardi came with his off-the-field issues, but with Icardi in the side, we didn't have a problem scoring goals. We continue to be able to score a lot of goals because of Lukaku's input, plus more off-the-field balance, and in the locker room, his presence, etc., etc. But I think the impact that Barella has had on the midfield would probably edge him out for me over Lukaku. I think overall the transfer in the incomers, I'd give them a solid 7 out of 10.
Who do you think has been the worst player or the worst signing? Not worst player. Worst signing.
Honestly, it has to be Sensi. It has to be Sensi. From being, having so much potential and so much hope being pinned on him, and having played such a protagonist role in the beginning of the season, to just, like Alex said, where's he been since the end of October? He's just, there's no Stefano Sensi. So I think the biggest disappointment must be Sensi, standing where we are at the moment.
Alex?
Well, overall, originally I was thinking to go 7, as Mo did, but I think I'm going to go 6.5, and part of that is Valentino Lazaro just completely not working out for whatever reason, maybe just not being solid enough defensively, and Conte lost patience with him pretty quickly. He was, out the door on loan by January. Sensi being so injured, I think hurts the cause as well. To me, Lukaku has been number one. I would even put Barella a little bit of a notch behind Lukaku. Lukaku has been more consistently available. I think he's been crucial, not only being at 21 goals at this point, but I see the leadership, and I can see the fact that he's just so important. Even when he's not scoring, what he does in the hold-up and the build-up is just really so important for Conte ball. So I go Lukaku as being the best signing, with Barella probably a close second. To me, the worst, I'm going to go in a little bit of a different direction than Mo, because I'm going to consider more the expectation versus reality, because upon signing Stefano Sensi, my expectation was not through the roof. Now, the first month and a half of the season changed my expectation, but as far as preseason signings, not a long-term project, but I expected a lot more from Diego Godin. I really thought, listen, part of it is the fact that Bastoni has played so well that's made Godin a little bit more expendable for the starting 11, but I just really thought that Godin would have probably 2 years in him at Inter of being purely world-class, and that simply has not been the case. So that's probably my shout for the worst signing.
This is crazy, Alex, because you have everything that I was going to say right there. This is,
wow.
It's as if you hacked my phone or something. This is weird, because literally everything you just said, 6.5, Lazaro, Godin, and Lukaku, and Barella, like that. I have nothing to add. That's freaky. Jesus. I don't know what everything you just said. Yeah.
I apologize for hacking your phone prior to the show and reading all of your notes.
No, but it's so weird, because that's exactly every single thing. You just check. So I have nothing more to add than what he said. Will?
Yeah, pretty similar. Lukaku I think has been the best signing. 20 goals or 27 goals in all competitions. I think his performances have been consistent, even when Inter have kind of dipped in and out of matches. He's always been there, constant presence. That's why Conte wanted him. That's why we thought he was going to be an upgrade from Icardi, at least in that sense, in terms of always being some kind of presence within the match. I remember watching a game a few weeks ago, and the commentator was saying that he'd been speaking to some of the communications people at Inter, and they'd all said how everyone was raving about Lukaku, about how he was a great sort of presence in the dressing room, how he welcomed the young players. We've seen him looking out for Esposito with that penalty that he gave him back in December. So I think Lukaku is definitely the best signing. There was such an agonizing negotiation process with Manchester United last summer, but it was worth it in the end. The price wasn't ridiculous, and we've got what we wanted from him. So I think very impressive. Barella is just a notch below that. I must say I gave individual ratings to every signing, because I wasn't sure how we were going to do this. So I've got Lukaku as an 8 out of 10 and Barella as a 7. Which in the world of sort of Italian football ratings is very high. That's me saying that I like them. And Barella,
in an Italian way.
But again, Barella took a while to get over the line last summer with Cagliari, but it was worth it. I wasn't certain that he was going to be the sort of all the dynamic presence that Inter needed. Certainly in the first half of the season, he was great. He took a while to get going. I remember the first couple of months, the talk was all about how Barella had come in late because he'd been playing with Italy in the summer and he'd had extended holidays, and Sensi had hit the ground running. And was Barella going to lose his place to Sensi? But that I think he found his feet pretty quickly. Sort of as Sensi got injured, he took over that position in midfield very comfortably. So I don't have any problems with Barella. Obviously 9 yellow cards so far this season, but I think we knew that when he came. I have to say, everyone else I have not a great mark for. I don't think any of them really deserve more than a 6, if that, out of 10.
Sanchez,
well, Sanchez hasn't played. That's the problem. He's been great since the restart, but he was out for so long that we've really missed him. It's not necessarily his fault, but if you're thinking about whether it's been a success, I don't think you can say it's been a success, because we could have done with him in December or January, and he wasn't there because he was injured. And I think that Lukaku and Lautaro would maybe.
Thank you, Juan Cuadrado, because he injured him, didn't he, in a match?
Yeah. Well, like you said, Nima, whenever Juventus need help, it somehow materializes. So
I didn't say it; it was La Russa.
La Russa, as you reported. Gordini's a shame. I find it a little bit hard to narrate him because we don't know what his presence is like again in the dressing room. I have a feeling he might be a good player to keep around. If you're just sort of evaluating one of his performances on the pitch, there's definitely been little to suggest to sort of dissuade those arguments that he's not sort of heading towards the twilight stage of his career. Sanchez has been disappointment, I think, because he's clearly been our best player for the last few weeks, and we haven't seen him. Hopefully, he'll stay for the Europa League.
I've not seen him this good in years. Jesus,
yeah. Well,
this is the Barcelona, Udinese, Arsenal Sanchez.
Yeah,
not the miserable guy rotting away on Mourinho's bench in United. I mean, this is wow.
He scored. It's all been. He took a month or so to get into fitness. Then the game against Samp, he scored on his debut, nearly scored a second, and then got sent off and missed the Juventus match. And from then on, he missed 3 or 4 months. So a real shame. Sensi's been a real disappointment. Having seen what he gave in the first half of the season, I have Lazaro as the worst signing because he's not here anymore. We got rid of him in January.
Yeah.
So
26.5 million to
wow.
Again,
he's now become a João Mario or like Caramo, one of these players that we're going to consistently struggle to get offers for. There's already
Caramo is gone.
Caramo's gone. So, but these players that every summer we're thinking, someone please make an offer. Galatasaray, do save us. Like just some random club. Biraghi obviously came in the swap with Dalbert. I mean, I didn't have high expectations, and he's lived up to those not high expectations, if that makes sense. And of course, there's a question mark over Eriksen, even though he came in late. So overall, I think a 6 or a 6.5. But we have made 2 great signings that will be important players for us going forward. So I don't want to make this sound like I'm being too negative.
That's true. Right. Well, then let's. We play Fiorentina and. Genoa, if I'm not mistaken. It's Genoa away, or is it 2 home games? I think
it's Fiorentina at home, Genoa away.
That's the one. So now, Fiorentina have nothing to play for. They've secured what they salvaged, whatever could be salvaged from their season, and I mean they've looked a little bit better the last 2 games, but they're not really that good. Don't really know what to expect there, other than. I mean, for me, it's Mo's fault because he's got me into this obsession mode about second place now, and I totally get why we have to get into second place.
Come on, Nima. I've got it as well. It matters.
Yeah, it really matters, and it's like it's all Mo's fault. It's like I care about second place, Mo.
No, I care.
Well, and remember, you want to avoid 4th place at all costs because when Napoli wins Champions League and Roma wins Europa League, you don't want to be left out.
It's totally going to happen if Inter finish 4th. Like that would be like the most Inter.
We will lose in Bergamo on the last game of the season. Atalanta will overtake us. We'll drop to 4th, and then the magic will happen. No, I think that obviously that's the point, but it's not just about that. It's about being the team that was closest to Juventus and not tailing off. I think it matters. Otherwise, if you finish 4th again, you've had 3 4th places in a row. What kind of progress is that? It's not the progress we were hoping for, certainly. So
for me going into this season, agreed 100%. I mean, for me going into this season, I wanted to see development on the previous season, and anything above a 4th. Already, we have more points than we ever had under Spalletti, which is brilliant. And then more than 4th, is to me then that and then a final or a semi-final in the Europa League is then that this season will be a success given all the madness that's been. So yeah, it's Mo. I'm on the second train and I'm on the Europa League winning train. So choo.
Oh God.
Right. No, but so and in order to do that, we have to win these two games. And I think we will, because Genoa are all but safe after the drama in a very, very entertaining game, Genoa Lecce, which I hope everyone watched. I'm sure Will did, because he's into that kind. You're into those kind of weird.
I didn't actually watch, unfortunately.
Wow.
I feel like I've let you down.
Yes, you have. I'm not angry. I'm disappointed.
I was very excited about the match, but actually I didn't watch it in, so this is elsewhere. But
no, it was great.
I've had this Genoa game sort of marked on my calendar for about a month. When it was the third last game, I just thought back to that. I've just been thinking back to that game that happened with Pioli's last game, when we basically gifted them survival with a stupid 1-0 defeat against a team that had just the most ramshackled starting 11 I think I've ever seen in Serie A. And I just thought, we're going to give them survival on this match. We're going to, we won't have anything to play, but we'll give Genoa 3 points. So I think if we're going to drop points in these two games, I'm more confident for the Fiorentina game than the Genoa one. I don't really know why, but
I agree because Pinamonti and Pandev were there as well, and Pandev has been great. So no, I'm saying but I still think I agree. I'm more confident for Fiorentina than Genoa, because it would be such an Inter thing to do. But having said that, I still think that I do think that Inter will win these two games, because I just feel that they've turned a corner mentally, and for me it was against Torino, that second half against Torino, the way like Mo was alluding to, and I said on this pod that to me it doesn't they're not bipolar anymore. They look more controlled, and I like that, because that means that Conte is getting through to them, and that's the most important thing. So I don't know, Mo, just quickly, where do you stand on those?
I'm hoping for 6 points. I'm guessing it's probably 4.
So which one do we win, and which one do we draw?
As Will said, I think we're probably. I mean, look, I hope we win both, but if we're going to drop points, it'll be against Genoa. I think the Fiorentina game is those 3 days rest and not having to go on a trip away is just going to feel like such a breather for the guys. That they're going to be so much more high energy, and I think the Fiorentina game is going to be nice and easy, hopefully. But the Genoa game is going to be tough. I still think we might win, but I'll hedge my predictions and say a draw there.
Alex?
They have a good record at home to Fiorentina. 4 straight wins at home. So, yeah.
Alex?
I never thought I would hit a prediction segment being more positive than Mo, but Nima, I'm with you. I'm weirdly, oddly expecting 6 points, and I have another feeling, and I'll go on record in saying this, hoping you'll remember if I'm right and you'll forget it if I'm wrong. But I'm starting to think that Lautaro Martinez is really due for a breakout. Like, we've seen a couple little signs here and there. He scored against SPAL, but I don't know. I'm thinking maybe something crazy, assuming he gets a good amount of playing time over these next two. I'm thinking maybe 3 goals in 2 matches for him. Just something in the air. I feel like Lautaro is due for a big bounce back after all this negativity surrounding, the way he's played and all the reports and rumors about Barca that have only intensified since the restart. I'm strangely feeling optimistic about these next 2 matches.
But dude, you mentioned Lautaro, and you reminded me of that ridiculous first touch on the goal that was disallowed for an offside. That was
yes. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that until you brought. I mean, what if? And I knew he was offside, but a part of me was like, I just hope they screw up and allow this just so that goal can stand. Because hopefully that, if nothing else, even though the goal didn't count and shouldn't have counted, I hope that does something for his confidence, because that was beautiful.
Amazing first touch. Amazing.
It was gorgeous. It really was gorgeous. I mean, he's a class player. Let's not even have any doubts on that. Right. Let's move on to the part of the show where we pay tribute, rip the piss out of, and criticize someone or something heavily in the world of football, starting with the positivity. This week's Moratti, which is presented by Mr. Mohamed Nasser.
He works a lot, he's intelligent, and He surprised people sometimes with his ideas. Not easy to find one person all this qualities.
Yeah, so guys, my Marathi of the week is something that seems to have been fairly well covered in this episode already. But I love me a good rant. I love me a good siege mentality rant, and us versus them. And for lots of reasons that you guys spoke about, Conte's understanding the club and the club understanding Conte, I think the messaging, the passion, not the passion. It wasn't very passionate. It was more bitter and angry. But I loved everything that came out of the interview yesterday after the game. And to Nima's point earlier as well, it's really ridiculous how even then the media somehow try and find a way to spin it in a way where there's a crisis at Inter. Is Conte blaming Marotta and Zhang for not putting their foot down when the calendar was made? It's nuts. But anyway, I digress. I think the post-match interview and this real us versus the entire league sentiment that came out of it is my Marathi of the week.
Let's move on to something much more comical. This week's Frog, which we presented by Mr. Will Beckman.
È clamoroso! Autogol di Ranocchia!
Yes, this week's Frog is an unnamed 23-year-old man who lives in the north of Spain. This is Why are you laughing already?
Because the way you tell it is absolutely brilliant. Alex is laughing too.
By the way, no, this is going somewhere hilarious.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, my Marathi of the week is Alex's 2-year-old son, who Inter had a little chat with on Twitter.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely adorable, and I hope he didn't hate that match and isn't put off for life. But
he was a little bored, but he's bored by a lot of things, so that's not necessarily an indictment on the football.
Okay.
Shout out to Inter for doing what they did. That was a really nice gesture.
Right, so this 23-year-old Spanish man, it's in Pamplona where the running of the bulls. No, that's actually relevant at all. He was been fined by local police. I think he's been fined €3,000 for putting public health at risk. He could also face criminal charges for contravening public health laws, according to police. So I'm sure you're wondering, what did he do? Well, he organised a football match to raise funds for the coronavirus effort in Spain. But there's something rather peculiar and contradictory about this match. The match was due to be between positive and negative people. So people who've tested positive for coronavirus against people who've tested negative.
You have got to be kidding me.
So, although it remains unclear, according to the Telegraph, why the man had arranged the game, it appears, according to a police source, he intended to dare people to risk their health. I mean, it's a really special achievement. I'm going to raise money for a disease, and in the meantime, I'm going to spread it.
That is brilliant. Yeah,
we don't have his name, but I hope that can be left in the realm of the Frog and not in the realm of the Moji, because I think he did actually organise some kind of gathering the week before, for which 40 people were fined for. Oh, hang on, he was supposedly organising something else. So I hope he hasn't created a second wave. But congratulations for a really truly boneheaded idea.
That is dumb. That is really dumb. Right, let's move on to something much more negative. This week's Moji, which you presented by Mr. Alex Donald.
This week's Moji has also been covered a bit on this episode, but it's referees and VAR. I continue to be so baffled, disheartened, and discouraged by the fact that even though this technology exists, and they've been using it in Serie A since the 2017-2018 campaign, this technology is now being utilized by referees to decrease human error and decrease the number of errors the officials are making. And yet somehow this technology has only accentuated the human error, not decreased the human error.
Unbelievable.
I mean,
Unbelievable.
It is so appalling that you've had a number of cases, and I'll highlight, the ones that have especially hurt Inter, given the theme of this pod. I mean, from Di Bello over the weekend to Abisso a season ago to Orsato 2 seasons ago, how these referees can have that technology at their disposal, and they can clearly see a foul being committed or someone who, they claim is offsides but wasn't, or vice versa upon video review, and still either be too dumb or too stubborn to actually change the call accordingly is baffling to me, because I've seen in certain other sports, the technology of replay and video review can really decrease the number of mistakes made. I think that it's used very well in the NBA. Overwhelmingly, it's used well in the NFL with some, notable circumstances where it's not used correctly. But the fact that in football, especially in Serie A, that the technology is not helping, it's actually making the officials look worse when they refuse to change their calls accordingly. To me, it's like, if we can't figure this out, then maybe it's time to throw it out. That's just my 2 cents.
Agreed. Enough is enough. I mean, I think John Solano, my colleague on the Serie A show, he says it brilliantly. When a beer guzzling, 6-pack drinking guy sitting on his couch can see the call on his TV and and pick up what the call should be, and you can't do it when you've got all the technology there, something is wrong here, and that's it's mind-boggling, really mind-boggling. Right, that's all we had time for this week. I'd like to thank you, Mo.
Thank you. It was an absolutely cool episode. Great to be with you guys. Great hanging out. Thank you.
And Mr. Alex Dono, good luck and congrats on the new job, and good luck with the Inter Miami CF. Although, I, from what I've understood, Inter aren't too happy about that name.
They're not, and also it's just my luck that Inter Miami CF have been as frustrating as Internazionale Milano so far in their young tenure. They're still searching for their first victory. So no matter which Inter I support, I am doomed for frustration.
Brilliant. And as always, Mr. Billiam Beckman, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good week, everyone. And hit us up on Twitter if you want to know what these results will be, because we know the scores of these Inter games before they even happen, clearly.
Before they happen, clearly, yeah. Right, that's all we have time for this week. I'm your host, Nima, wishing you all a good week, 6 points, and sempre e solo Forza Inter. Forza Inter,